Hello and welcome to another edition of Wellbeing on Spectrum Television. Wellbeing is an interactive program designed to encourage a healthy living. I am Mary Joseph. Please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms, which you can find on our website at spectrumtv.ng. To awaken your consciousness, today we will be talking about one of the approved tools in the National HIV Combination Prevention Package that is targeted at those with a substantial risk of HIV infections. Pre-exposure prophylaxis, popularly known as PrEP, is a drug designed for the prevention of new infections and reduction of the burden of HIV among individuals and groups, particularly at high risk of acquiring the virus. The creation of PrEP is a part of efforts by the federal government to achieve the national target of reducing new HIV infections by 90% in 2025. As it stands, globally, Nigeria has been ranked among the countries with the highest HIV burden, with the country accounting for over 1.9 million people living with the virus. Back home, according to the recent National HIV and AIDS Indicator and Impact Survey report, Akwa State ranks number 1 with about 5.6%. With the above statistics, there is now an urgent need to drastically reduce that number. But how does PrEP help this cause? We would find out in a moment when our guests join us to shed more light on this concept and so much more. But before then, let us quickly take this time out. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to the show. It's still the program Wellbeing, your wellness talk show that is designed to keep you health conscious. Do remember to follow us on all our social media handles that you could find on our website at spectrumtv.ng to be a part of the family. Today on the show, our focus is on PrEP and how it helps in the bid to prevent new infections as well as to reduce the number of people living with HIV in our society. Meanwhile, we took to the streets to get the views of a cross-section of people here in Akwa State to share their thoughts on the concept of PrEP and if they are indeed open to taking it and whether or not they would encourage others to take up these services. And here's what they had to say.
Well, I don't know.
No, I've not heard of PrEP before.
Quite well, I know it.
I know what PrEP is. That is the drugs we take to prevent HIV.
If I see the drugs, I can take it.
Sure, I'd like to take it.
I'll be able to take it so that maybe we can prevent the HIV.
Very well. I will. And I will in a position to advise others to do so.
Because of when I'm a man, if I tell you, say, I can mix myself anyhow, well, I don't know, it's possible. So, if I see that drugs, apart from that, I could take it, or test, I could get ready to do it.
It prevents from getting infected with HIV, which, how can we get the HIV? How can we get infected? It's through sexual intercourse, which we know when you're up to the age, there's nothing that can prevent you from doing it. So, PrEP, I think it's a very good drug that will help most of us, not only the Akwa but worldwide.
Knowing the negative impact of HIV, I would tell people like this is a preventive form of you being safe from having HIV, like any other immune drugs that we have. That's what I would advise people, and it's better you do this, but we don't know what will happen so that you can be prevented and be immune against this.
I advise the person to take the drugs because in the next future, you can prevent the person from having the HIV. Or maybe the person might have it before. Maybe from taking the drugs, you can give the person more years to live.
I will try to talk to them because it's about life or death. So I talk to them that PrEP is not a deadly drugs. Rather, it's a drug that will give you life. If you take it, I hope it doesn't have any side effects. And I will try to talk to them to take it because it's about life. It saves life.
If I see that kind of, or if I reach house, see one of my brother, I'll tell my brother, see this thing, go and test it and know before anything.
Those were the views of people in the state capital, and some persons expressed their readiness to take up these services to ensure that they and their families are protected from the virus. Well, it's time for us to link up with our guests in our discussion segment.
I'm Dr. Akwa. I work with Heartland Alliance as the clinician. PrEP means pre-exposure prophylaxis. Okay, pre is before, exposure is exposure. Prophylaxis is what you give to prevent something. So simply put, PrEP is a drug regimen or a drug combination that is given to prevent HIV. Okay, and it is given to people who are not yet HIV positive, or people who have very high risk of getting HIV but have not yet contracted it. So as at the time they are being given PrEP, they were HIV negative. So the essence is to prevent them from contracting HIV when they eventually get exposed to it. All right, there are clear-cut channels, through which PrEP is given. We have, like us in Heartland Alliance, we have various channels of accessing PrEP. You can visit the one-stop shops and access PrEP free of charge. And then we also have persons that are assigned to communities to give PrEP to as many persons that that desire to have PrEP, and those who are eligible, to have PrEP. And these ones are called focal service providers. There are a multitude of ways, actually. We also make use of social media, all right? So our social media handles are out there. You can contact us and tell us you want PrEP, and we'll give you PrEP. And then basically, and sometimes too, we organize outreaches, okay? We organize outreaches and then we distribute or we give out PrEP to those who are eligible. I think I should talk about the eligibility criteria for PrEP. So we'll have a good understanding of what PrEP is. All right, before one qualifies to get PrEP, number one, the person must be HIV negative. So HIV testing service must be done. What that simply means is that the person should be tested for HIV. So once the person is HIV negative, it's an eligibility criterion to access PrEP. Then the other one is that the person should not show signs of what they call acute HIV infection. What that means is the person should not show signs and symptoms that could suggest that the person had already had HIV infection. Okay, because usually within 2 to 3 weeks of getting exposed, there are a cluster of signs and symptoms one can show. So when you take a history of that person and the person is not showing any of these signs and symptoms, yes, that's another eligibility criterion. Then you should do a urine check, a urinalysis. If you don't find protein in the urine, that's also an eligibility criterion. And then if the person's kidney functions are good, such that the level of a protein called creatinine is within normal range, you can also give PrEP. And then, more importantly, the person shows the willingness to take PrEP. And the person should also be at high risk of contracting HIV, basically. Well, PrEP, like I said, pre-exposure prophylaxis. ART is antiretroviral therapy. PrEP is to prevent HIV. ART is to treat HIV. All right. Now for PrEP, you're expected to take PrEP as long as you're at risk of HIV. As long as that risk to contract HIV is still there. Now let me give an example. If you have serodiscordant relationships, say the man is positive and the woman is negative. So for as long as the negative woman is in the union with the man where they will be having unprotected sex, putting her at risk of contracting HIV, she should be on PrEP. However, some persons, after a while, for whatever reasons, may not be at risk of contracting HIV and they can discontinue PrEP. So yeah, there's a concept called PrEP discontinuation, all right? But for ART is lifelong. For now, there is no cure to HIV. So anybody who is HIV positive will be that for life. So the person should be taking ART for life. But that's not the case with PrEP. Yes, the drug regimen for PrEP is tenofovir lamivudine or tenofovir tricitabine. But right now we don't have the tricitabine component. So what we readily give out is tenofovir lamivudine. So yeah, there are side effects. You have the general one. You can have headache, nausea, vomiting, and then we have the specific ones, especially due to the tenofovir component, where you might have a little bit of kidney insufficiency. So the tenofovir part of the broth can affect the kidneys. So for some persons, they might begin to show signs of a little bit of kidney problem, but that is usually taken care of because even before the person starts taking PrEP, we check the person's kidney functions are checked. But aside from that, you have the general one, numbness, blah blah blah. Yeah, quite a whole lot. But the advice we usually give is once you start taking PrEP, whatever clinical feature, whatever signs and symptoms that you experience, you should let your service provider know. So we know if it is related to the PrEP or not, and then take action. We use what we call IEC materials, information, education, and communication. These are just means of spreading our messages. And then the principle is the messages must have a target audience, must be easy to understand, and must be disseminated in languages that the target audience understands, say vernacular, pidgin, or even Queen's English, depending on the audience that is being targeted. So, and then we also have them in printed forms. We have them in electronic forms, we have them in printed forms. The principle is it should get to as many persons as possible. We leverage on social media too, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. And then we also have our foot soldiers, our community or field workers who actively spread, this messaging. And then in the OSS too, or in the clinic, we have these IC materials pasted everywhere. So that when you come, even as you're waiting, you can see these messages on PrEP, in this context, and so on. So those are basically ways by which we spread our message. Well, we have documented evidence of good response. That is not to say that we've not had some persons who may not want to accept it. But there are a lot of work, okay, a lot of innovations, a lot of improvements to overcome these challenges. All right, but largely or summarily, I can say that the response has been impressive so far. Yeah, anybody who is at substantial risk of contracting HIV should access PrEP and take PrEP as it should be taken. All right, and prevention is better than cure, right? Lots of, in developed countries, even in Nigeria, a lot of money is being invested in prevention now because they know it is even cheaper than spending money to cure a disease. So it's better to prevent, say, HIV than to treat it. So I'll encourage everybody who are at substantial risk of contracting HIV to do so. Yeah, there could be some stigmatization from we've noted that some persons will feel that I'm taking PrEP, it looks like I'm already HIV positive, but that shouldn't be, because that is not true. The person is still HIV negative as long as he or she takes PrEP the way it should be taken.
So that was Dr. Anyefiok Akwa, and we were talking about the concept of PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is one of the latest interventions created by the federal government to prevent new infections and reduce the prevalence of HIV in the country. So this is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of the program. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Remember, you could also be a part of the family by following us on all our social media platforms that you could find on our website at spectrumtv.ng. Join us next week for another edition of Wellbeing. My name is Mary Joseph. Till we meet again, remember that HIV is real. Get tested, know your status to gain control of your life.